Gooners, how are we? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Hope you're all well and are having a fantastic week so far. Arsenal play their final pre-season friendly of the summer tomorrow, but we're not going to be building up to that on today's podcast. Maybe we'll touch on it on tomorrow morning's episode. Instead, we're going to turn our attention back to transfers. We've had our sort of mini meltdown about what happened against Villarreal, the performances across that game and across the game against Tottenham Hotspur, where there were causes for concern. Like, I've seen a lot of people online saying, oh, I can't believe Arsenal fans, overreacting. Come on. Most of us aren't overreacting in terms of, really kind of going over the top in our reaction of it. But if you're voicing and expressing your concerns about certain elements of our team, about certain elements of those two performances, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right to kind of feel that way, I think. But today, as I say, we're going to talk transfers. We're going to turn it back to that because we have sort of drifted off the transfers theme for the last few days, and rightly so. There's football back, and albeit preseason games, it gives us the opportunity to concentrate on the actual game itself, which I much prefer doing, by the way, than sort of talking transfer speculation and in a lot of cases hypotheticals. But look, we've got a couple of sort of relatively telling updates, I would say. We're going to talk about Eberechi Eze, and we are going to talk Rodrygo as well. Two players that have been heavily linked with Arsenal throughout the duration of this transfer window so far. So we'll cover off what the latest is with regards to those two players, and we'll take some of your thoughts and some of your questions from the live chat box as well. So if you are with us on YouTube, be sure to leave a like on the video. That really, really does help. And subscribe to the channel if you are new. If you're a regular around here, you'll know what you're going to get by now. So a like should be automatic, right? Hit that button. It really, really does help. If you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, you can leave us a review. And if you'd like to go one further in supporting the podcast, you can become a Patreon. And we've got a new Patreon piece dropping tomorrow. So come and join me over on the Patreon side of things for that. Not only do you get access to exclusive content, but you also get ad-free episodes of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast, which I know to a lot of people is a pretty big deal. So let's get into it then. Let's not mess around. Let's not waste any time. I will come back to some of your comments in a few minutes, but let's start with the Eberechi Eze to Arsenal stuff. Now, I have been fully on board the Eberechi Eze to Arsenal hype train, right? And I make no secret of that. I think he would bring lots of skills and lots of quality and add lots of value to this Arsenal team. I think he's unpredictable. I think he's skillful. I think he's creative. I think he's added the ability to kind of really box crash efficiently, especially in the last year. I think Oliver Glasner, who's a fantastic coach, I think has really taken him to another level. And that's why there's interest. That's why people are looking at Eberechi Eze and thinking, yeah, I'll have a bit of that. And, we're not the only club in North London that appear to have an interest in him. But if we were to go head-to-head with Spurs, you'd feel quite confident, wouldn't you, in the fact that we would get that over the line? Because why would anybody in their right minds, and I mean this with all due respect, rather join the Spurs project than the Arsenal one at this stage? Right? I know they won the Europa League last season, but they finished 17th in the league. Arsenal have been consistent Premier League title challengers for a while now. And if you were to come in and be the guy that helped them, take that next step, you'd become an Arsenal legend. And so, you factor that in, you factor in that I'm sure we're competitive, if not better, in terms of paying salaries than Tottenham. In fact, I know that we are better than them, generally speaking, on that sense, on that front. So, yeah, like if the competition is there, but we really, really want him, we'll win that competition. The question is, how much do Arsenal really, really want him? And, for me, it's been a big talking point over the last few weeks. Every radio show I've been on, every TV show I've been on, every podcast I've been on, one of the first questions I get asked is, do you want Eberechi Eze? And do you think it will happen? Well, up until a few days ago, I was convinced that Arsenal would find a way to do this deal. And I was convinced that Arsenal were in a position of comfort in that they had got the majority of their signings over the line, 6 players in. They were pretty comfortable with the business they'd done so far, and so were willing to play the slightly longer game with Eberechi Eze in the hope that they could get a better deal and a deal that works for them. Now, we heard about this release clause that Eberechi Eze has at Crystal Palace. We heard that that release clause was going to expire on August the 1st. Others were reporting that it was going to expire on August the 15th, the day before the season starts. And so we didn't really know what to believe in that sense. But my feeling was that Arsenal would just sit tight here, would let this thing run, let this thing play out, and would make an offer knowing that they've got the player sort of really keen to come over, sort of slightly towards the back end of the window, which would put Crystal Palace in a position where, yeah, it's not ideal because they can't really recruit to replace or won't have as much time to do so. But I think if Eze's really pushing it, I think, we might have got this deal done towards the end of the window. But all the noises I'm hearing now are actually to the contrary. And that's really, really frustrating. Let me make that clear. I am not okay with this. And some people have said to me over the last couple of days when I've had this conversation, look how many signings you've already got. Why are you being greedy? Well, we've made 6 signings, but we also lost 6 players that were a part of our first team squad last season. So we kind of had to make those signings if we wanted to, improve and put ourselves in a position with greater strength in depth and in a position to compete. Think about it, right? We lost Jorginho, we lost Partey, we lost Tierney, we lost Tomiyasu, we lost Neto, we lost Sterling. Now, Neto and Sterling, of course, were loan players, but they were part of our first team squad last season. Neto was our second choice goalkeeper, and Raheem Sterling was the only attacking player that we brought in the summer before. And he did have a role in the squad. So you lose 6, you bring 6 in. I'd argue that the 6 we've brought in a lot of cases, are of a higher quality. And so you could argue that there's improvement there, of course. But strength in depth is really, really important. It's really, really important. And so when you lose that volume of players, and I know that you could argue that Max Dowman's coming through and whatever, and he's brilliant, don't get me wrong. So maybe you're recruiting from within in some senses as well. And actually you're in a better position than just the kind of 6v6 would put you in terms of incomings and outgoings. I get all of that. But I still look at that Arsenal attack and think we are missing something. And that is a feeling that I had way before we lost the Spurs in Hong Kong. So this is not a reaction to that. It was a feeling that we had way before we were beaten by Villarreal at the Emirates Stadium the other night. My point here is that the opinion that a lot of us share, which is that Arsenal are still missing something in the final third, is not a knee-jerk reaction. It's not a sort of overreaction to what we've watched over the last week or so. This is a genuine concern that Arsenal fans have about the team right now. Now, people are going to say, well, there was someone in the chat earlier on. Hold on, let me try and find it if I can scroll back far enough because the chat's been popping off. Here we go. Guitar Solo says, we're getting daily Eze update videos without any real Eze updates. You are the boy that cried Eze, Harry. We haven't done an Eze themed video for a few days now, I don't think. In fact, let me go back. It's definitely not daily, is it? I mean, the last time we talked about Eze was, 4 or 5 days ago? We're definitely not doing it daily, mate. Come on. And we're going by the reports that are out there, right? We're reacting to the stories that are doing the rounds in the Arsenal sphere at the moment. But I guess circling back to my initial point, I'm not happy with this. I'm not. And, I'm not saying I'm going to go into the new season as Mr. Negative or anything like that. That's not in my nature. But we are missing something in that final third. It is clear to see. You're looking at, based on preseason, and again, preseason isn't the be-all and end-all. And if we go and thump Manchester United at Old Trafford on the opening weekend and we score 3 or 4 goals and our attack clicks beautifully, this conversation will probably be deemed irrelevant, right? But I can't see that happening because I feel like there are too many deficiencies in our attack right now. Lots of people keep talking about Victor Gyökeres over the last few days, and we got a bonus episode coming out very, very shortly. If not later today, then definitely tomorrow. I've got quite a bit going on at home today, so it's just going to depend on timing. But it's all prepared and ready to be recorded. But it's an episode about how we unlock Victor Gyökeres, because I do think we need to make some adjustments, and I do think we need to make some tweaks in order to get the best out of this goal machine of a striker that we've brought into the football club. That was always going to be the case, by the way. Like, I wasn't naive enough to think it was going to be plug and play. Everything could stay the same, and that Victor Gyökeres was going to score goals after goal after goal after goal after goal, right? We knew that we'd have to slightly adapt our game. That would have been the case with Benjamin Sesko coming in as well. So if you're still banging the drum about Sesko versus Gyökeres on August the 8th, when one's gone to Man United pretty much and the other one is well and truly an Arsenal player, forget about that. It's not necessary anymore. It's not a relevant conversation anymore. But I do think we need to make some tweaks and adjustments. And I think we need to see a hell of a lot more from the likes of Gabriel Martinelli, from the likes of Leandro Trossard, from Martin Odegaard. I mean, he was good when he played last season, and he had impact even when he wasn't at his best. But Bukayo Saka in pre-season has looked miles off it. And again, it's pre-season, so I don't want to make any sort of definitive judgments, and I don't want to play down how good and important Bukayo Saka has been for us for the last few seasons. That's not what I'm seeking to do. But you don't look at our attack right now and go, wow, in the way that I look at Liverpool's attack and I go, wow. You know, and that's where I'm a little bit worried, okay? Lots of people have made the point about Eberechi Eze that because he's not a natural left winger, actually, this doesn't make sense for Arsenal. But I think the fact that he can play on the left wing very differently to Martinelli, if you're going to keep Martinelli, which it seems like Arsenal are going to do, we keep hearing he's not for sale, he's not going anywhere. If you're going to keep Gabriel Martinelli, actually having an option that is quite different might be a good thing rather than bringing in a like for like. Eze would be that, but Eze would also be someone that could really help us in the more central areas as well. Again, a problem area for us in terms of our creativity and ability to break people down. Plus, he's got goals in him. He'll take a shot from the edge of the box. We've seen that firsthand at Emirates Stadium. He's a fantastic player. And in my opinion, Arsenal should be doing everything within their power to try and sign him. Now, I don't know that they're not. I can't say that for sure. But judging by sort of the tone of some of the reporting around this and some of the noises that we're kind of hearing when in and around Emirates Stadium, this isn't imminent. So talk of it being really, really close and all the rest of that is premature. Okay, we're not at that stage. We keep hearing that Arsenal need to sell. We keep hearing that outgoings are the focus. Okay, fine. But think about the outgoings that are realistic for Arsenal this summer, okay? This Saudi interest that we heard about regarding Martinelli, where is it? Okay, it's nowhere to be seen. Nobody's going to pay 75, 80 million quid, which was what was being talked about just a few short months ago for Gabriel Martinelli in his current form. Okay, he's had probably 2 seasons now where he's not been at the level that we hoped he would. And I'm not saying he's a bad player or anything like that, but you're not going to get that kind of money for someone like Gabriel Martinelli at this stage. You almost need him to kind of play his way back into the kind of wider, broader eye. And then maybe, you know, you might end up getting something big for him next summer, potentially. Right? So he's not going anywhere. If Leandro Trossard goes, how much can you realistically get for Leandro Trossard at his age and with his contract situation? You're probably talking, what, tops 15 million, maybe 20 million pounds, depending on who it is that's interested, but you're not getting any more than that, okay? Think about the other ones. Vieira, how much are you going to get out of Stuttgart, who we're said to be engaged in talks with around him? 20 million euros, again, tops. Lokonga, probably next to nothing. Karl Hein, not much. You stand to save wages if you let Zinchenko go and if you let Leandro Trossard go. You'd save in that sense, but you're not bringing in transfer fees. Reece Nelson, I think, is on about 100 grand a week from what I was reading yesterday. And, if that's the case, and that's, as I say, purely based on something I was reading, You'd make a big save in there if he eventually ends up going to Fulham, right? But like, I don't look at us and say, right, that's the one. That's the outgoing we're waiting for, because that's going to bring good money and top dollar, and all of a sudden we're going to be fine, and we're going to be able to go and bring in the more marquee signing like Eberechi Eze. I was okay with the Madueke signing in the end, and I made peace with the Madueke signing in the end, because I was always of the view that if that was supplementary to the main business that we're going to do, which would have been a striker and one more attacker, then that's fine. But if we don't get another attacker in, and we've only got Gyökeres, who's great, but needs to find his feet, and Madueke, I'm going to question whether that's enough, because until I see the form of Martinelli, for instance, really kind of turn around and him being able to impact games in the way that he once did, until I see Martin Odegaard back to his best, I'm going to struggle to see how Arsenal have the firepower to go on and win the Premier League. Because we talk about how good we are defensively, and we are, right? And the reason I haven't made too much of our defensive flaws in preseason is because I know that we are a good defensive side. I know that. We've seen that. The evidence is there. But for the best part of a year now, you would argue that Arsenal have been a little bit blunt in attack and not had anywhere near the firepower of Liverpool and probably of Manchester City as well, who, have made really good moves in the transfer market again to kind of bolster their options in that attacking third and to really add creativity, the likes of Shirky, people like that. So I am a little bit concerned about the idea of Arsenal going into this new campaign without bringing in another attacker. And I was dead set on it being Eberechi Eze, as I'm sure a lot of other people were. There's a lot of people out there that are still saying, Arsenal still like him. This could still happen. And maybe it will. I'm not here to tell you that the deal is dead and it's not happening and there's no chance whatsoever. But at this moment in time, it doesn't feel like we're close to doing this. And Sami Mokbel, who was talking about this yesterday, obviously of the BBC, was on FK's Latte Firm, fantastic channel and podcast. Go over and check it out. He said, if you were to ask me, as of today, it's not happening. It's not close. And also, factor in, that Eze's been super involved in Crystal Palace's pre-season. And not a day goes by where you don't scroll through social media and see something from Crystal Palace with Eberechi Eze in the middle of it, in the center of it, goals that he's scoring in pre-season and all the rest of it. So I am worried that this doesn't happen. And if it doesn't happen and we don't turn our attentions elsewhere and bring in one more attacker, I fear that we are going to be short in the final third. Doesn't mean that I'm going to write off the season and I'm going to throw my toys out the pram and all the rest of it. But that would be a concern of mine. There's no question about that in my mind. Right, we're going to take a short pause. When we come back, we're going to very briefly touch on the latest rumors around Rodrygo, and then we're going to get back into the chat and take some of your questions and thoughts. So if you've got questions and thoughts, hold fire on the questions specifically, and I'll come back and take some of those in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe.
That's right. You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. Like and subscribe. Don't forget, it really, really does help, all of that stuff. Liking the video, turning on the notifications via the little bell icon and all that stuff. It really does help. So get involved. Okay, Rodrygo, what's the latest on that then? I mean, I've said for a while that I feel this one is incredibly unlikely for a number of reasons. I think that the money it would take to get him out of Real Madrid is crazy. The salary demands are going to be crazy because he's coming from Real Madrid. But in the last couple of days, we've seen a few stories doing the rounds claiming that Arsenal are hoping to sign Rodrygo on loan between now and the end of this window. Now, let me be clear. There's no way that Real Madrid let him go out on loan without there being at least an obligation to buy in there. So either way, I feel like to get Rodrygo in the door, Arsenal are going to have to commit big money. Now, they might be able to kick the can down the road slightly and agree that obligation to buy, which allows them to pay next summer or start paying next summer and paying installments over a long period of time. But you're still making a big commitment there. So this idea that we can just get him on loan, and if it doesn't work out, we can send him back. No, Real Madrid are not going to agree to that. Real Madrid are not going to accept that. Why would they? They're in a position of strength. They always are. They're Real damn Madrid, and yeah, I don't think that that's realistic. So if we did manage to land him on loan, we'd be committing, maybe not now, but certainly tomorrow, and that I think will probably put Arsenal off. Liverpool said to be in the mix as well and exploring a deal with similar sort of terms and parameters. Again, don't know how accurate these reports are, but I thought it was worth touching on. I just wanted to make my point. I don't think it's likely that Real Madrid would allow, in fact, I think it's impossible, I'll go that far, that Real Madrid would allow Rodrygo to leave on loan without including some sort of obligation to buy, which would then lead to Arsenal making a big commitment anyway. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. I don't think there's too much in that one. I don't want to give it too much time and attention because I don't think it warrants it, to be quite honest. So, yeah, that's where we're at on that. Right, let's get into the chat box. Let's take lots of your thoughts and lots of your questions. Does anyone want to jump on? Does anyone want to have their say? If you want to have your say on the Eberechi Eze stuff, give me a thumbs up in the chat. And if people are interested, I'll drop a link in there and we can maybe wrap up the show with some of you guys jumping on in a kind of call-in style as well. Let's take some of your questions then from the chat box. What have we got? Lee Coombs says, yeah, you're right. According to Tom Canton, Arsenal are focusing on our outgoings at this present time. Due to the progress of Max Dowman and the signing of a new Waneri contract, Eze won't be coming. I certainly think those things have played a part. Like, I certainly think if you're Arsenal and you do, as people are telling us, categorize Eberechi Eze as a central player, then you are going to look at the other players that you have in your ranks. And you are going to say, beyond Odegaard, we've got Waneri, we've got Dowman coming through, who, has featured for Arsenal in pre-season on the right, but is, generally speaking, more of a kind of central player. I actually really like him from the right, but I think that's a really good way of sort of opening the door for him to the first team. But yeah, I think those things may well have changed the view. Nasir says it's gut wrenching that United got Sesko. I mean, I'm not that fussed about it, to be honest with you. I'm not that fussed at all about that. Tom is in the chat. Big shout out to Tom. He says, I didn't say Eze won't be coming. Just to be clear, important to quote correctly. Yeah, no, Tom said that he doesn't know that it's happening at this moment in time, and that, there's no progress on it at this moment. He never ruled it out. He never said that it's dead in the water, just to be clear as well. But yeah, nobody's particularly confident around it at the moment, which isn't great. Make sure you go over, by the way, and subscribe to Tom's show. He's much better at relaying the news accurately and in a timely manner than I am. You can join him every day, 8 a.m. Go over and check it out. I get a little bit ranty at times, don't I? But yeah. Anyway, right, let me pop the link in because there's a few of you in the chat that are interested in coming on and having your say. Make sure you're somewhere quiet and all that. Make sure you got your cameras turned on and all that. And if we could try and keep it PG, because it is what time is it? 10:30 in the morning. That would be good as well. Right, I've just dropped the link in the chat. Let me just pin it to the top of the chat as well, so that those of you who wish to jump on and have your say can access it nice and easily. Yeah, I mean, just while I'm waiting for people to join, my final thoughts on the Eze thing before I stop giving my opinions, at least for now, is that whether it's Eze or someone else, Arsenal short. And if we don't go and get another attacker, it will feel like once again we've gone through a summer transfer window without sufficiently boosting our attack. And people will say that, well, what are you moaning about? We just went and got a 39 league goal striker from last season and brought him in the door. And we've just spent £50 million on a winger. And we've got Nwaneri developing more. And we've got Max Dowman coming through. but the attack is missing something. Everybody could see it last season, particularly on that left-hand side. If you think Madueke is the solution on the left-hand side, fine. I'm not that sure about it, and I can't be sure about it. It wasn't a signing that I was massively on board with in the first place. And so the jury is out, and I need to see how it goes and how it all develops and whether or not that turns out to be a good bit of business or not, right? Only time's going to tell on that. There's a few comments coming through in the live chat. Anthony's asked me to put the link in. I've done it, mate. It's pinned at the top of the chat. You says Harry's otherwise over optimistic or otherwise pessimistic. Eze will happen. We're not going to stop because of a 15-year-old kid. This is the thing with Max Dowman, right? Like, I mean, people keep saying he's 15 years old and he's not going to play a major part, and he shouldn't play a major part for that reason. And we got to manage the hype and the expectations around him and all the rest of it. But he's so bloody good. He is so bloody good. He's scary good. He's honestly scary good. And as a result of that, I just think it's impossible to ignore him. Like, I genuinely do. I think it's impossible to ignore a player of that talent when they're in your ranks. This is a bit of a random question. Jacob Kirk says, would you work at TalkSport full time? I work quite a bit at TalkSport. I'm due to be on TalkSport 2 this afternoon from 3 to 5 if you're interested, with my good friend Kwaku Afari. And I've had a fair few opportunities over the summer as well on TalkSport, and I host at the moment their Inside Gooners Arsenal dedicated show, which is great fun as well. Look, lots of people feel that there's a kind of anti-Arsenal agenda on TalkSport. I feel that at times, but that's what I'm there for, to try and balance that out a little bit, and that's what I hope to do when I am on there. But look, it's the biggest sports radio station in the world. Who wouldn't want to be a part of that in some way? So I'm very, very grateful for the opportunities that they give me, for sure. Ganto says, did you hear what Sammy Mockbell said about Martinelli and his book value? Was this the thing about him sort of, being allowed to stay so that hopefully if he has a good season, Arsenal can kind of move him on in the future? Is that the bit that you're referring to? I haven't seen the whole show, if I'm being honest with you, but I've seen a few of the quotes online that have been sort of picked up by the aggregators. Cards MN2 says, do you think we as Arsenal fans overinflate everything, as in we go into every intricate detail about every possible signing? It's stressful. No, I think all fan bases do that, right? And I think because we are a very, very big club with a huge global following, it's always going to be the case that things sort of snowball, opinions sort of snowball. You sort of let your thoughts get the better of you. There's so much content out there for you to consume that you can wake up one day feeling one thing and thinking something completely different the next day. It's very emotional, I'll give you that, but I think it's because we all care really, really deeply for the club, don't we? And that's what it is. I can't read this name. Nij WMZen29. Arteta saying Madueke can play on both flanks is an indication that we're not signing a left winger. Thoughts? Well, I was the one that asked Mikel Arteta that question in the press conference about what his plan was for Noni Madueke. Is it right? Is it left? And he said both. I don't know if that was an indication that we're done in the window, or if it was more so Mikel Arteta doing what he always does, which is just wanting tactically to keep his cards very close to his chest. I mean, I wouldn't take that as seriously as saying, because he said that, we're definitely not going to bring anyone in between now and the end of the window. But also, like, when you think about the options that we still have, because everybody keeps telling me Trossard's going. Everybody keeps telling me that we might sell Martinelli. There's been nothing concrete around either of those two players at this moment in time. Okay, Trossard might have explored his options. There might be clubs out there looking at him, looking at his contract situation and thinking, we can take advantage of this. And that might change and develop into something as we go into the latter stages of this window. But at this moment in time, we've got two left wingers and we've got two right wingers in Saka and Madueke. So we've got four players to play across those two positions. Add into it that Nwaneri can play on the right-hand side. Add into it that Max Dowman's pushing as well. And all of a sudden, Mikel Arteta could make the argument, I got 6 options in the wide areas. And so if we didn't sign one, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't subscribe to the idea that we're okay in those wide positions and that we've got sufficient quality to move forward and win the Premier League title without recruiting further. But I'm just playing devil's advocate here. That's what will be sort of pushed back on, and how the club, I think, would probably push back on that kind of narrative or opinion. Paul says, "Hi Harry, can you explain how you guys in sports journalism work? Is it a contract job? Do you have an office you go to every day? Because I see so many podcasts during the day, and I was wondering if that's full time." That everybody works differently. I'm a freelance sports broadcaster, more than journalist, and I do my podcast during the day in the mornings, and then I often go and do work for other people, and it's kind of ad hoc, right? So people would text me or call me and say, "Harry, we're doing this on this day. Can you come and join us?" or whatever. That's how it works for me. This is my office. This is my sanctuary from the wife and kids as well, a lot of the time. Right, look, let's bring in a caller. Let's bring in Rob, who is joining us as well. If there's anybody else interested, this is kind of your last chance to jump on. There we go. We've got another one coming in as well. All right, I'll get through the callers that are there. But if you do want to jump on and have your say, you need to join me in the backstage bit within the next few minutes or so. Let's bring on Rob. Rob, just remind us where you're joining us from, mate. Good to have you.
I'm calling from Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Fantastic.
Although from my accent, you can tell that I'm not from New Zealand originally.
You're an honorary Kiwi, is that?
I am a citizen now, yeah. So I can call myself a Kiwi. Yeah.
There you go.
But I lived maybe like 20 miles north of Highbury. Used to go to Highbury when I was like 5 or 6, many moons ago. So yeah.
Fantastic stuff. What do you want to say on the Eze, Rodrygo, the transfer window, in general stuff?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I thought your point about the number of players that had gone out versus the number of players coming in was pertinent. I had not really thought of it that way. I'd thought of it as, those players that we moved on were either, I mean, okay, you're right, they were in the first team squad, but they were never starters, and many of them would hardly ever come off the bench. I mean, Tierney, wonderful as he was, and it was great to see him get that goal, but he rarely played for us, other than when we were kind of scraping the bench and we had like youth team players in. Sterling, the same. So I don't know, like from my perspective, I think that we've upgraded massively in all areas, probably other than Mascara. And so that's one thing. And then the second thing, really a question is, I mean, if we're looking at getting in, I mean, I'd love to get Eze, like, of course, and Rodrygo and like all of the best players. Of course, I'm an Arsenal fan, but we also got to look at squad numbers, right? Because from my understanding, it's 20. Is it 25 first team squad players above 21? Is that right?
I think that's right. Yeah, I'd need to double check that, but I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've had a little look at the website, and looking at our squad, it seems to me that we've got 27 in there currently. And obviously we've got, Nwaneri and Lewis Skelly. But on the website, it doesn't even list Nwaneri in there, weirdly.
Yeah, the website always, I've never, like, for me as well, right? Over the last few years, I've covered a lot of the under 21s games, right, for the club. And I'm going to be doing some this season as well. But whenever I sort of go onto the club's website to try and gauge what the squad looks like, it's also inaccurate. It's all over the place. So I wouldn't read into that too much in terms of how the club on their website sort of display who's in what team, because they'll have players that are in the first team, not in the first team squad because of their ages. You'll find them in the
Yes.
academy bit, but then you'll have players in the 21s, in the 18s that are actually playing 21s, and it's all a little bit all over the place. But I mean, do you not worry that, and forget the numbers element of it, right, for a minute. I made that point about 6 in, 6 out, because I think people have sort of gone, well, Arsenal have gone crazy in the transfer window, bringing 6 players in without actually factoring in the fact that we lost 6 players as well. Now, however important their roles were in the squad, they're still bodies that we've lost. So that's why I kind of made that point. But do you not worry that looking at the attacking options that we have now, we're a little bit short? And maybe for me, this is partly because I'm comparing us to Liverpool, who I think have already got an incredible attack and have gone out and strengthened that further, and might even bring in Alexander Isak as well between now and the end of the window. But that's where I worry, just on the firepower side of things.
No, I mean, I totally agree. I am concerned, even though we have got so many players in and spent so much money. I mean, when Gyökeres went off, and we've got Marino going up front again. I mean, I to be honest, I always thought that Marino was going to be our backup striker outside of Havertz and Gyökeres until Jesus comes back.
Yeah, and
or
that's fine.
or if he's sold, then we would need to get another one in. So I don't know. Like, I guess you've got 4 potential number 9s strikers, and then you've got Saka, Wanyeri, and potentially Dowman on the right, plus the Chelsea signing, whose name I've completely forgotten. Madueke. And then you've got Trossard. Currently, you've got Trossard, Martinelli, and Madueke, filling in on that side as well. So, I mean, I'm certainly concerned, because when you look at who we've brought in so far, and how devastated we were by injuries last season, then I mean, also we've got Reece Nelson currently, haven't we? I mean, I don't think the Fulham, he hasn't gone to Fulham yet.
No,
So,
it's not happened yet.
I mean, if you look at numbers itself on paper, I shouldn't be worried, but I think we've got PTSD, right, from last season, haven't we?
I mean,
we ended up having to play players that we had to take Marino from midfield into striker that he'd never played before. So yeah, I mean, I get it. I am concerned, but then, like, when you look at it on paper, numbers wise, there shouldn't be a concern there. Even if we get even if we get 4 bad injuries again, we've still got numbers to. I mean, maybe we haven't got the quality, but
that's the point for me, Rob. That's the point. It's not the numbers for me. It's more the quality. Rob, I'm going to let you go just so I can bring on a couple more callers as well before we wrap up. But thank you for joining as always, mate. Really appreciate it.
Nice one. Yeah, thanks, Harry.
Nice one. That was the brilliant Rob joining us from New Zealand. Let's bring in Anthony. Anthony, are you there? Is he there? Hello? Anthony, you gone walkabouts? What about King's football show? Is everybody gone walkabouts? Hello? Okay, we've got 2 callers there that aren't actually at their computers. Prince, are you there?
Yes, I am. 2 secs.
There we go. What do you want to say, mate? First of all, where are you joining us from, and what do you want to say?
Currently in Luton.
Nice.
Yeah. My thoughts on the Eze and Rodrygo situation is we have to act prudent as fast as possible. If we want Rodrygo, we might as well just get him. If it's a loan deal, we just get him, try him on the left, because honestly, Madueke is still not something that I would prefer on the left. So we just have to get him on the left so that we can just get things rolling, because 5 years, 6 years of just watching us just try here, bits and there. It's not working. We need to act as soon as possible, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think we need to bring in another attacker. I've said for a while I don't think Rodrygo's likely, and I certainly don't buy into this. You know, we're going to get him on loan with no commitment thing that some people are kind of peddling. And listen, people will have better knowledge of this and better information than me. But if the first thing I do when I read a report is I think, does this make sense? And it doesn't make sense for Real Madrid to let Rodrygo join Arsenal unless there is an obligation to buy, in which case Arsenal would be committing huge money. Only they'd be kicking the can down the road and maybe making those payments from, for example, next summer, right? But if that's
Mm-hmm.
the case, then surely as a football club, we can find a way of generating the money to do the Eberechi Eze deal, which I think would be better for us right now, which I think would suit us
But
right now. Go on.
exactly. But our issue has always been that our outgoings. Our outgoings have also not been that brilliant. We've not made that much money anyways from that. So if we can get Trossard out of the line, which personally to me, I don't want it to go. Martinelli as well, but who actually wants Martinelli? Because we are the same people that not actually writing him off as a better a better left winger. So in that case, I just feel like in that position, if we can get, because if you look at our left back situation, he has always not gelled up with anyone we've brought. Nobody supports him as much as, let's say, at the right position where Saka has.
But is that not a tactical thing though? Because our left back is asked to go into midfield all the time, whereas on the right hand side, Ben White
Right.
seems to have that license to get up alongside Saka and make things happen. I think it's a tactical thing, and I actually think that Martinelli's made to look much worse than he is because he doesn't have that support. He doesn't have anyone to play off, and I'm kind of hoping, and this is just a hope, that actually with Victor Gyökeres coming in, who
Yeah.
does like to drift into those sort of left-sided spaces, then that
Right.
might help unlock Martinelli as well. That's my hope.
So you want us to keep Martinelli?
Well, the thing is, like people keep telling me, let's sell him. Who is in for him? Who is in for him and who is willing to pay big money for him? Because we've got this thing that we do, right, as football fans, where we go, X player is worth X amount of money, which is complete and utter nonsense. A player is only worth what someone is willing to pay for them. Okay. It's like me. I could sit here and tell you that my house is worth 10 million pounds, but no one's
Right.
going to be willing to pay anywhere near that because it isn't even worth a fraction of that. So, like, that's for me, some of the valuations that we come out with around players, and I'm not saying this is about you, I'm saying generally speaking, there's delusion attached. There's people that look at players and go, well, he's worth 60 million or 70 million or 80 million. It's like, well, unless
Yeah,
someone's actually willing
we're
to
not gonna
stump up.
get that price tag on Martinelli.
Exactly.
That's for me personally. That's my main concern. Like even watching the preseason, we lack that tactical force on the left, and I don't know what's where Arteta. If the inverted is not working, where you can also push Martinelli up front, why don't we just have, I don't know, a left back that would work with Martinelli? I don't know if you get what I'm saying, but it's like now it's very obvious that that's how he plays his game. He needs a
Yeah.
left back that can push, that can support in the midfield, and just leave Martinelli on that side. And like since last season, we've been caught up with that same tactic each time. But with any other position, he always has a way of finding it. I don't really want to go on the coach right now. I just want us to find a solution
Yeah.
because that's what everybody has an issue with. That
Yeah.
left
Agreed.
position.
Agreed.
That
But
left position.
I agree with that. I think you're right to not want to go in on the coach, right? Because I don't think that's necessary in preseason. I think it's ridiculous when people do that.
Exactly.
But at the same time, if we do have a structural issue on the left-hand side, that is kind of within the coach's remit because the coach needs to make an adjustment, in my opinion, for us to
Me
maximize the players
personally,
that we
he
have.
shouldn't. Me personally, if he can get Trossard, if he can actually get a good price for Trossard, we should try Reece Nelson. I don't see why not. Because even if you watch a few of the minutes he got during preseason, he's actually not that bad.
He's not bad. He's not bad at all. But there's two things with Reece Nelson for me, and this is just my view. Number one, he can't stay fit. That's a big problem. And number two, he seems to do this every preseason where he sort of shows himself to be a really exciting talent. And then once the season starts, things completely change. So that's kind of my worry on that. Prince, go on. I'll let you have the final say, and I'm going to move on to the next caller, just conscious of time.
Okay, my final say is thank you for having me anyways. But personally, if we can keep Reece Nelson, because we have a lot of competitions to play, because we are now on the top side competing for each and every single competition. That's what people don't seem to understand. So if we can keep them and at least put them on rotation, that could make sense. But really and truly, our left side position in that attacking wise we have to find a finish line for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining me, mate. Really, really appreciate it. Brilliant to speak to you, man. All the best. Right, let's bring in King's Football Show. What do you want to say, mate?
Yeah, how you doing, Harry? I hope you're well.
I'm good, mate. Where are you joining us from, first of all?
Sweden.
Sweden, brilliant.
Sweden, yeah.
Brilliant. What do you want to say, mate?
Yeah, I feel like I understand a lot of people's concern, especially with the attack, especially with the left wing. But I do have a question because, Martinelli, his best season was when Zinchenko was playing as a left back, and Zinchenko was an inverted left back. So I'm not sure if the tactic is the issue or the main issue. I wonder if it is the profile in midfield that are bigger issues. So, Zinchenko was an excellent technician and passer. Granit Xhaka was also an excellent passer of the ball. So, and Jesus was someone who could dribble. So when Jesus got the ball, he would usually drop deep, link up, dribble, open spaces where Martinelli could run past in the middle and find space. Because I do think that with his pace, he's best running through the middle. I don't think he's excellent as a touchline winger because he struggles in the 1v1 situation. And I wonder if that's the reason why we got Madueke in as someone who's actually thrives playing wide and going on 1v1. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think you make some really good points there. I definitely think that Martinelli's struggles have been in part because of what's going on around him as well. Like I'm not taking all the responsibility away from the player. I think he's got to do better in certain situations. And I would argue that he probably hasn't developed in the way that we hoped he would maybe sort of 2-3 years ago. But yeah, like you think about what we've got now, we've just changed the way the team works and the way it sort of operates on that side of the pitch, and that's had an impact. Granit Xhaka was massive in Martinelli thriving then, Zinchenko as well, because those two guys, they weren't interested in getting on the ball and carrying it. They just weren't.
No.
They as soon as they got the ball, they were interested in looking up. Where's Martinelli? Can we get him into that 1v1 situation? Can we feed him nice and early? Yes, we will. Bang, there it goes. And you get the ball to him early and give him that opportunity to take on his man without the opposition having got back into shape and having adjusted and put all the measures in place to prevent him from progressing. So I think you make a great point. Zinchenko plays the left back role, even though he inverts and Miles Lewis-Skelly inverts in a very different way. Skelly wants to carry the ball into the middle of the park, whereas Zinchenko wants to work it into the middle of the park. And that's the difference for me in those two. And then again, it's very similar with Rice versus Xhaka. Rice is playing as the left 8 at the moment. Again, Rice is more of a carrier for me than a passer. And again, that's the fundamental difference. And it means that it just takes that little bit longer sometimes to get the ball out to that left flank, which allows people to double up, which allows people to get in shape and makes it tough for whoever it is on that left wing. Maybe Madueke changes that. Maybe he improves us in that department. We'll have to see. But I think you're right. I think the left side in general is not really functioning. And there is a breakdown in the kind of circuit, if you like, that people are very quick to pin on Martinelli. He's got to do better. Let me be clear on that. But I don't think it's just down to him. King, I'm going to leave it there, mate, just because I'm really running out of time and I've got a couple more people to get through. Thank you for coming on, though. Really appreciate it. And all the best.
Cheers. Take care.
Brilliant stuff. Let's bring on Mark. Mark, where are you joining us from, mate? Welcome to the show. You're on mute, my friend. Just unmute yourself.
Oh, New
There you go.
Zealand.
New Zealand, brilliant. What do you want to say, mate?
About the Eze deal, I feel, how do you say this? I feel that if we spent 60 million on a 27-year-old, and we also spent 55 million on Gyökeres, who's the same age, I'm not so sure if we're being realistic, Arsenal operate that way. If you think about it, I still think that we have that mindset of buying players in a certain age so that they're sellable in the future. And alongside Ethan Waneri signing his new contract, is that really realistic for us to have Eze and Ethan and Max Dowman on the same side? And if it were up to me, I would actually loan out Ethan Waneri and give him that William Saliba route if he's open to it. But that's just my thoughts. I don't know if you agree.
I agree with you in that the club probably look at it that way, right? That they probably go, because remember we heard sort of almost famously, didn't we, from Edu that time about, when we're signing a player, we look at, their age, and if they're sort of 27, 28 and you sign them on a big contract and it doesn't work out, then you're kind of in shit street because you've got no way of regenerating any of that revenue back and all the rest of it. I get all of that. But I just think we got to a point in the project where it's about winning now. And sometimes to win and to get over the line, you need those experienced players and players that are at their peak. And if someone's the right fit, whether he's 27 or 24, shouldn't really matter too much. And I think because in another squad, right, if you looked at another club and you looked at another squad, I'd certainly say, yeah, you got to be careful with that balance. But you run through this Arsenal team, right? You've got a relatively young goalkeeper by goalkeeping standards. Ben White's not old. Gabriel and Saliba certainly aren't. Mars Lewis-Skelly is still a kid, essentially. You move into the midfield, you've bought Zubimendi, good age. Declan Rice is at a good age. Is partly why we paid so much money for him. Martin Odegaard's at a good age. And then you factor in the even younger players, the Nwaneris, the Dowmans, the Marley Salmons, people like that coming through. I don't think Arsenal are in a position where they really have to worry about that. I really don't. I get what you're saying in that that's probably the club's preference, but I just think that we're maybe too far balanced the other way if that's the case. I actually thought this summer was a bit of a turning point in that sense because signing Victor Gyökeres, I know we got a better fee than we would have got for Sesko, but I felt like that was Arsenal saying, no, like he's the guy, so let's do it regardless of his age. And I think, if we sign Eberechi Eze, that would be another statement kind of pointing us in that direction, which would be good. But I get what you're saying. I'm not sure that if I'm Arsenal, I'm going to obsess over that too much. It feels like we always get to a certain point and then it's kind of like, well, okay, but does this make business sense? And unfortunately for me, in order to win, I think sometimes you've got to park what makes business sense and you've got to do what makes footballing sense. And I don't know if as a football club, we're willing enough to do that. Is that fair?
Yeah, I actually agree with that. Because I think for this season, because we've finished second 3 times in a row consecutively, I think there's a point where if I was in charge, I would spend more right now so that I don't have to spend excessively amount next season, because I feel that the amount of money that we've spent right now is a bit of a saving face for not spending or just recruiting smartly last season.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like last season when we bought Mourinho, I mean, I like him as a player. I think he did really well when he played as a false 9. But I haven't really been that convinced when he's starting as a midfielder. I find that he struggles between, apart from winning the ball, which he's really good at, I sometimes feel he's a bit slow when we lose the ball and he has to retreat. And I just kind of, when I look at it more deeply, when it comes to recruitment, like for example, we've had issues about the left back inverting too much and whether or not we're being found out, we're being too predictable, and that sometimes like Maslow Skelly, which I rate a lot, but sometimes he just lose the ball unnecessarily, and then we're crying out, do we need another left back that is a bit more traditional, that overlaps, that can cross? And we just let Kieran Tierney go in a free. And the fact that I'm a bit critical when it comes to Arteta not using his squad adequately, so that players like Tierney, they just lose value by not playing that much. And that profile of a player, like we could really need, and it's ironic because he was our player last season. But in terms of like football, I was just kind of wondering. For me, I just find that it's more tactical. We could buy Eze, but we could still face the same problems. I find that I would change the shape of the midfield, and whether that be a 4-2-3-1 or even a back three, because Arteta did play that back three when we had some average players like Mustafi, Kolasinac, and I find that it's more tactical.
You think it's
rather
more tactical
than
personnel? Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And if it is that's the case, then we need our manager to find a way of kind of just adjusting things and tweaking things. And listen, one thing I'll give Mikel credit for, and I'll give him credit for a lot of things, let me be fair, but I think he is good tactically. And that's why I get frustrated when I see the same issue over and over again, because I think he definitely has the capacity to make those changes and to find different solutions. And he feels like a football obsessive, someone that would sit there and would spend lots and lots of time trying to figure out different things. He's got some great coaches around him, and hopefully this season they manage to do that. Mark, I'm going to let you go because I've got one more caller just to get through, mate, before we wrap up. Do you want to say one final thing? Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, going back to what you said about him wanting to change it, and he doesn't strike, for me, he doesn't seem someone that's as stubborn like a Wenger or a Guardiola. I actually think he's quite pragmatic, and that he may have a philosophy of attacking football, but he doesn't necessarily play the same way. And the reason why I thought perhaps changing back to a back three would be helpful is because we've played it before, and he's shown that he could do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, thank you so much for joining, mate. Really appreciate it, and hopefully speak to you soon.
Thank you, Harry.
All the best. Right, let's bring in our final caller. Anthony, you there? How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, all good, mate. All good. Just remind people where you're joining us from.
The suburbs.
The suburbs. Love that. What do you want to say, mate?
Right, in relation to Eze, obviously Fabrizio did say that we're going to have to sell. So I get Sammy Mokbel's point at this point in time.
Yeah.
A deal for Eze is unlikely at this stage, but that doesn't automatically mean that, that it's ruled out. Obviously.
Agreed.
Obviously the dominoes have to fall in terms of the players being sold. If you look at Chelsea and Liverpool, despite what you want to say against Chelsea and Liverpool, they have managed to sell players at premium. You got guys like Kivior who we could get top money for him. Yeah, we sad to see him go, but that'll be one person who, if a big offer came in for him, I would get rid of him. But because of the state of Calafiori in terms of his injury, I would keep him. So I'm not going to lose my head regarding Eze. Look, if that does happen, it does happen. Until Ornstein comes and said that the deal is off, it's not going to happen, etc., etc. There's no point in people losing their heads going forward to that degree, because I've seen people online already, Onyx, cussing the club, etc., etc. At this stage, it's not going to happen because it's the outgoings that Burton needs to focus on.
Yeah.
We've done okay in terms of the transfers that we bring in, but our problem is now, selling. If Berta is good as people claim he is, this is where he earns his money. This is where he puts all that experience and all that knowledge to the test in terms of selling players. We may have to take a loss on some players like Vieira. Zinchenko, going to be a bit difficult because of his wages. We've always had this, when we put players on those type of high wages, no one's going to pay that.
Yeah, and listen, I think it's undoubtedly the case that we are going to take losses on these players, and we're not going to get close to what we paid for some of them, right? Fabio Vieira, for instance, you're not getting £30 million for him. It's not happening. You're not getting £35 million that you paid for Zinchenko, but that's okay in a lot of cases because that player has served you well for a few years. So it's not that you're looking to get what you paid for them, but in comparison to what other clubs are getting for some of their fringe players, you can understand why Arsenal fans are feeling a little bit frustrated by some of the sort of value offers that are coming in. But also, then that takes me on to the next point, Anthony, which is if you're not going to get big money for these players, how much of a difference are they making to our plans? Because I get with Zinni or with Trossard, if you moved one of them on, you'd save a significant amount of money on a salary, which means that you could probably make the Eze thing work in terms of wages. I get that.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get a mega fee for any of these players that we're talking about. That's going to be essentially even half the funds you need to do the Eze deal. So that's where I'm a little bit. I get that we need to sell and I get that we need to move people on. But there's a part of me that goes, how much of a difference does that make in the grand scheme of things?
Well, I think what we've done, which is a problem, is that we've kept players longer than we should have done. Like Mars. I'll go back to previous windows. If you look at Ainsley Maitland-Niles, when Wolves came in, we rejected that bid, and they were looking to pay like near enough 30 million for him going forward. We have made these mistakes in the past, and we're still continuing to make these mistakes. We've done it with Eddie countless of times. We did it with Arteta. He needs to let players go in terms of keeping hold of them longer than necessary. And then when it comes to selling them, we can't get top dollar from him. And that's the overarching issue that we have here, that this manager wants to keep on players that, like Vieira, unfortunately, it hasn't worked out for him.
But on that, Anthony, though, on Vieira specifically, did he want to keep hold of him? Because he sent him out on loan. So the way I read that situation is he was happy to let him go, but nobody came in with an offer other than FC Porto, who wanted him on loan.
Yeah.
And that felt like we were going down that route because it was the final kind of destination for him. There wasn't if you're open to letting someone go on loan, you're probably open to letting them go on a permanent in most cases.
Yeah, I get that. And that's the thing with Vieira. Obviously, no one came in for him going forward. Porto, obviously Porto couldn't afford him, hence why he's back. And obviously there's links with Stuttgart and what we want in terms of valuation to what they want. Hopefully that, we can negotiate a middle ground, because look, even 25 million, in terms of euros, if you got to take a loss, you got to take a loss. Zinchenko, the same thing. Nelson, apparently there's reports regarding another club interested in Nelson going forward. I think it's AS Roma. They're interested in moving him along with obligation, etc., etc. But we've set a precedent in regards to we can't sell for 9. Hence why when it came to PSR, we was in that situation because we were spending money, but when it comes to actually selling players, we couldn't do so. And just on the other thing regarding Rodrygo, obviously there's been a load of talks, and I was listening to Tom's space this morning. I wouldn't categorically say a loan deal for Rodrygo is impossible, because look, we did it with our captain, we did it with Dani Ceballos in terms of a loan. Odegaard was a loan with an option to buy going forward, so we do have that relationship. And besides, Arteta and Xabi Alonso, what I'm saying, they are friends in that aspect. So I wouldn't necessarily rule it out to say it's impossible. It can be done, in terms of a loan with a obligation to buy, which Sammy Motbell did say that possibly could be a potential going forward. It's something that we could explore later on down the window if Rodrygo is not part of, Xabi Alonso's plans going forward. That is a option that we should try to explore going forward. In terms of the salary as well, like either half and half or 60-40 in terms of the salary going forward. And then if that's the player that we need to sign, if Trossard does go, then so be it going forward. It's, to say that it's impossible, I would say no. If, we've got relationships with them going forward. I know this is business, etc., blah, 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 but we've done it with 2 of their players in the past. So I don't see a reason why that wouldn't be an option, because we can't afford them outright, given the circumstances that we're in at the present moment. So categorically, I think the alternative would be a loan with an obligation to buy going forward and take it from there. Because if Trossard does go, we wouldn't need to buy another left winger for the next couple of years going forward, because Rodrygo and Martinelli, they will be literally fighting it
Yeah,
out.
but
Going
if
forward.
you're committing to an obligation to buy,
Mm,
not an option, an obligation, then you're basically spending that money. You're basically spending that money now. You could, because you're tying yourself up for the next however many years. In which case, that I
mm,
don't believe that Arsenal as a football club cannot find the money to sign an Eze, for instance. Maybe Rodrygo's a little bit too far, depending on
mm.
what Real Madrid are demanding. But I don't believe that Arsenal as a football club can't find a way of making that happen.
Well, it's
I
down
think
to that. It's down to the owners. If the owners are that ambitious and say, well,
exactly the
if
point.
if it's down to the owners now, it's down to Josh to stop with this PR malarkey about, be excited, etc., etc. Forget
Yeah,
about, all that semantics in terms of the financial aspects. If you want Arsenal to win trophies, put your money where your mouth is.
exactly
I'm
that.
sick and tired of these owners, coming with this great PR spin season after season after season. Give the manager the players they want. If he wants Ceze, put your money, your money where your mouth is.
Yeah,
Put your money
exactly.
where your mouth is. If they're supposed to be that ambitious, which they're clearly to some degree, but I wouldn't bet my house on it going forward. Put your
Yeah,
money where your mouth is. You know that Arteta wants the player. That's one of his priority targets. Go give him the money.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
No, listen,
That's
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. They got to show that. Anthony, I'm going to leave it there, mate, because we've been running for a while. Thank you so much for
cheers.
joining me,
You
mate.
too,
Really
mate.
appreciate it. And we'll speak to you again soon, I'm sure.
Cheers.
That was the brilliant Anthony joining us from the suburbs. Love that. Right. I'll speak to you all very, very soon. Another edition of the pod coming your way tomorrow, unless something major breaks between now and then. Gonna love you and leave you all until the next one. Take care of yourselves. Have a wonderful day, and up the Arsenal. Goodbye.